Welcome to the House of Web3. I'm here with Teddy, who does these monthly. Nigel's here with us. You can see in the top left corner uh, the area where we'll be doing a quick talk and a panel, probably starting in 20 minutes. So I was just going to let the two of you chit chat for a moment with it's all your channels that we're live on.
Yep.
And then we'll kind of get a slow roll in a moment. So for now, I'll just let the two of you guys talk a bit and
Got no audio. Okay, it's weird. I can't hear you. Can't hear you, Teddy. For some reason, I can't hear you. Can't. Okay, I don't know if I'm actually coming through here, but we seem to be experiencing some technical difficulties. We're at the House of Web3 in the Presidio. I haven't been to this space before, but I heard it's something that's quite miraculous. And Ted Haas, Chief of Ethics over at Attention Live, and he's over at Innovate, is spearheading this event here at the House of Web3, the monthly event at the San Francisco Presidio. But I can't hear. For some reason, I'm not sure if I'm coming through, but I can't hear Ted. So we'll see if we can't get that sorted out in a minute. Not sure what's going on there.
there. Now you can hear us.
Okay, that's better. That's better. Now we're on.
All right. Well, that's good. Okay, so we're here
Well,
at the House of Web
yes.
3.
Well, this is not because I think
Beautiful
you can.
venue.
Well, you could enlighten me on some of the give me some of the backstory. I know a little bit, but not nearly as much as I'm sure you can share during this time. I've
Well,
heard
the
a
House
lot
of Web
about
3 is
right.
this beautiful co-working space,
Okay.
and right here in the Presidio, it's gorgeous. And it's funded by this group called Edge and Node. They are the group that invented the graph, which is the indexing protocol for the blockchain to index all, before you can search.
Okay.
Before you had Google, you had to have a protocol for indexing all the data. In Google, that was all the data that was, on the web. So
Okay.
they built a similar indexing protocol, decentralized, that can be built upon. Originally is for the Ethereum blockchain, but now it's multi-chain. So now all the public data that's on the blockchain can be searched through this indexing protocol. So, anyways, Edge and Node, who are the developers of that, their philosophy is let's solve the world's biggest challenges. And I met with them and I said, that's right up my alleyway. And they have this community meetup that's been going on for, a few years now. And it was every week. Now we moved it to once a month. So it's the first Wednesday of each month. We meet here, we share a meal, and we have a collaborative discussion. And we bring tech leaders together, technologists, innovators, Web3, AI. We bring them together with social service providers, the faith community, with we have policymakers. We've had the mayor here. We had all mayoral candidates here. And we collaborate to solve our social challenges, which we believe are the most important challenges. homelessness, human trafficking, and all that. It's a really beautiful, creative time, and you get brilliant people together that see things from different perspectives, and it's amazing the insights that can come. So that's the House of Web3, and it was called We Heart SF, but with a purple heart, but we've renamed it. It's now the Innovate. As of today, this is the first time, so those of who are watching get to see. As of today, it is the Innovate Connected Communities weekly meetup, yeah, San Francisco.
Okay, well, that's a mouthful. That certainly helps clarify some of the questions I have about the backstory, and that's a great collaboration. I think you putting the right players in the right places can only lead to insightful results, in one way, shape, or form. But to jump right into that, what do you see? I always like, understanding best case, worst case, more likely case, or where we're trending in these things. What do you see as the best? What do you see as the biggest challenge? Let's not even use worst. What is the biggest challenge you think you face in getting the insights and the and getting the true substance out of this, the best out of this, the most potential out of this collaboration?
I would say the biggest challenge is that we have all this knowledge out there. We have an explosion of human knowledge, but it's siloed right now. And that's, to me, the biggest challenge. And you see that whether that's in industries, whether that's in, we tend to criticize the faith community as they're stuck in their four walls. But they're siloed. If we can get them out, get them involved, you also have these social service providers that are on the front lines that are super innovative. They know what it takes. They know they see the gaps in the system. They see, and they have a skill at helping people transform lives, and for the community they're serving, it's getting results. But it's very hard to just sustain it, much less scale it. So I would say, if we bring the people together, that's when the magic happens. So the biggest challenge is probably our fragmentation and our silos. Then because if we can come together and stay together, then we can face the challenges and overcome them. But if we're siloed and fighting against each other, we don't make progress.
Well, what do you think are some of the bridges that you found in doing this? Like, what were some of the aha moments that came out that kind of seemed to be trending in the right direction?
Well, I've talked about this a lot, but one of the aha moments for me was this understanding the connection between justice, particularly access to justice, and specifically technically in the area of civil law, and you could say every negative outcome, but particularly homelessness. That was a real aha moment wow, I didn't realize how deeply connected that is. And then how prevention, we say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, but we don't practice that in social services. We don't provide universal access to justice. So the poor are exploited, and then it grows, and we have out of control homelessness. So that was one aha moment.
I heard you talk about this before. Give me an example of how you've seen it actually in practice, where the results have proven out the theory.
Yeah, I believe so.
You're saying, what's a positive example? Like, what's something that we've done in this community?
Of a situation where justice has prevailed in terms of the democracy?
I believe she was Asian. I can't remember if it was Chinese or Filipino. In the 80s, her and her husband bought a home in San Francisco. And shortly after that, a few years after that, her husband passed away. She had one daughter, and the daughter had is disabled in some way. I don't know the exact details. And she was paying over 50% of her income, but she faithfully paid this mortgage. And San Francisco built up a whole bunch of equity. Then this was not that long ago, but they had she got older and was harder and harder. She was a cleaner, harder and harder to meet the mortgage payments off of her meager income. She wasn't worried about it because she had so much equity, like $800,000 in equity. But then she got notified that she was foreclosed on. The neighbor actually told her. They sent her a check for I think it was $1 representing all her equity. So they sold it for like $61,000 to someone else. She went around and was desperate. She came across and hard to find help. She came across Open Door Legal. And they, their model is to represent anyone within their zone. Anyways, they represented her and were able to turn it all around, realize the bank had violated many codes and were not allowed to foreclose on her. She got it back. And yeah.
Wow.
So instead of being homeless, her and her daughter have $1 million asset, generational wealth. It's one example. We're starting up here.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to change.
Created a health bar down in the Tenderloin for people that don't get the right nutrition and they have some challenges. But this has really taken off. It's his little pet project. It's been amazing for us during the fires down in LA. The firefighters stick this in their pocket. It doesn't melt. Doesn't require any kind of refrigeration. But he's given us like 7 pallets of this.
Nigel, I'm loving you right now.
Disappeared overnight. So,
we are on
want to kind of point out some of the
platforms and innovate. So for everybody out there in TED Hoss land and Innovate land,
we actually did an
welcome
AI
to the party.
Training
We are
program for
going
folks that were in
to
recovery
transition to
in an
this
organization called
main
City Team in LA.
place.
So it was a tag team effort
we
with
have
a
a
college down in
different
Phoenix
beachside
that
talk
provided
than we usually have,
refurbished
obviously
laptops, just
streaming on different channels.
Chromebooks.
Nigel, you're welcome
and
to
the school
stay in,
sent them up to
and
us.
if there's
And
anything
then Eric
that
ran
you
a
want to
course
jump in
on
and talk to the
how
internet, you're
AI
welcome
works.
to kind of be
We created some of the
digital
profile stuff.
commentary.
And at the end of the course,
you're not logged in, is that correct?
How many weeks was
No. I think you can go ahead and just transition to the other one.
Just to say goodbye for the day. So
Yep, and I'll tune in. All right, man.
On their laptops.
This was great.
Love you, my friend.
Love you more.
For jobs. And this year we were told by the college they have about 800 more laptops they're working on. So we're hoping to scale out that program where we can train folks in reentry on how to leverage AI to get employment and get involved in other things. So just a couple examples in the last 6 months of things we've done in the past as We Heart SF. We hope to do a lot more projects like this under the new name Connected Community. And we want to carry on, and we've been granted permission to use the House of Web3. Unfortunately, with their new software, they double booked our first meeting. So we're working through that. Next month, we might have to bump to a different Wednesday, but we're working through it. So after the next, these 2 months, I think we'll be pretty solid in terms of getting back on track within the room that we were looking for. So I've been part of a couple conversations with Eric about not only what we're doing here in San Francisco, but some things that are going on around the world. And I wanted to kind of give Eric a chance to talk about some of the stuff that he's done with us, but also some of the projects you might be working on in other places. So real quick, here's Eric, if you don't know him.
Hey guys, Eric Forrest here. I run the workforce development now that has been a part of this community for a few years. And Paul just wanted me to share some work we're doing in West Africa with my company Bloxy and with our sister company PayPageo, which is a Web3 payments platform. So what we've been building and what is launching at the end of the month is basically helping a population that is one of the 5 poorest countries in the world. Niger is a country of 27 million people next to Nigeria. They have 85% of the population are unbanked. The main form of currency are SMS apps and cash. And so it's a huge problem if you don't have digital payments, if you don't have Visa, you don't have MasterCard, there's no PayPal, how can you have credit scores? How can you even have a credit or lending system to empower a capitalist economy if there's almost no debt creation, right? So now with the Genius Act and having stable coins and clarity around that, we're able to introduce in concert with the government and the banks a blockchain-based payment rails that allows for the control and transparency that the banking system needs in terms of KYC. And this is a country that has a huge terrorism problem, so they have to be very controlled about who comes into this new payment system. But basically, it's using USDC stablecoin payments, working in concert with the mobile provider in the country that is going to push out basically a white labeled version of PayPangea called Igato Pay. Igato Mobile is the mobile provider, so it's already a brand people know in that country. And so for the first time now, one of the poorest countries in the world will have digital payments, something like Visa or MasterCard, but it will be the same infrastructure, but on our rails as PayPangea, white labeled as Igato Pay. So we're really excited. This just opens up financial opportunities for one of the poorest countries in the world. They have an economic alliance with Burkina Faso and Mali, the two neighboring countries. So they use the same banking and mobile infrastructure in all three countries. So this will now potentially be rolling out to 80 million people in one of the poorest parts of sub-Saharan Africa, giving them digital payments, being able to give them, there is no Amazon there. There's literally no digital shopping. There's no digital marketplaces. So now this will open up all of that type of commerce for them. So anyone who has a small business can now have a digital storefront, can now accept digital payments, all because of blockchain technology and a payments infrastructure that's really seamless and borderless. So that's what we're doing, and excited to share it. Paul, thank you.
All right. We want to bring up stories and examples of how tech is having a positive impact, not only here, but around the world. Because we're just thinking about, like, how does this play out in San Francisco with the Tenderloin, where people are cash challenged, right? But they have things that they can trade. So we're exploring different ways of kind of engaging and helping out in crisis situation, and as well as with folks that are food scarcity and security challenged. We're looking at ways to kind of digitally come alongside people and help them. Part of this exploration is meeting incredibly gifted individuals that are going to tell us a little bit about what they're working on. So Ian, I wanted to invite you. I'm not going to say anything about you, let you introduce yourself and the committee up here. It'd be great.
Great. 1776, my ancestor, Lieutenant Moraga, lands in Monterey, California. Now, he is second in command of the Spanish Army. Lands in Monterey, and the general says to him, "You're retired. I'm going back to Spain, reporting into the Queen. Whatever you want to do, you have my blessing. I suggest you go up north and make a name for yourself." So Lieutenant Moraga grabs a priest, 16 men that he trusted, anybody that was part of their families, and landed right here at the Presidio. And my ancestor founded the Presidio. The next year, 1777, he founded the city of San Jose, which is why his big 25-foot mural is in the city building. This is an amazing place. It's incredible to think. I like to call Lieutenant Moraga the first great entrepreneur of the Silicon Valley. It's amazing to think what his family, the Moragas, and the family that they married and kind of forged a larger family, the Pachecos, accomplished in Central California. Obviously, things changed, Spanish-American War, many other reasons why they are not, as influential as they once were in the past. That reality in my life doesn't do anything for me. I have nothing to show for the fact that I'm a 10th generation resident of the Bay Area, but it does give me a unique perspective on having a long view when thinking about innovation. You see, because I think about Moraga and all that's happened because of his sacrifice as an entrepreneurial, military leader, and what's come out of the things that he started, I give myself permission to think about, well, how will my life impact the world in 2300? And that's probably the greatest gift I have from my ancestry, is that I give myself permission to think about building a castle with my life, right? Our ancestors, we all share commonalities with our shared ancestry. All of our ancestors are likely at some point royalty, at some point slaves, at some point slave owners, at some point we had ancestors that died young and lived long, and we have this shared humanity. But one thing that's unique about the past is people built castles they never would enjoy themselves. So in the past, a duke, a duchess, a baron, a prince, princess, king, queen would start a castle project. And with that project, they knew their kids, their grandkids would never enjoy it, but they would bleed for it. They would sacrifice for it. They would lay down their life to build it. It would be the vision that generations would chase, even though they themselves were nothing but just a visionary with an idea and a willingness to sacrifice to get there. This is called a one wheel. Now, this has been called the most dangerous mobility device in the world. If you've ever watched YouTubers, one that's pretty well known is Casey Neistat. He tried every kind of thing like this. And when he got on this thing, broke his collarbone. So he doesn't like it very much. So the government tried to regulate the one wheel. So dangerous. People are going to fall and die, hurt themselves. Got to get those things off the street. Now, I've done 10,000 miles on this one wheel. When I speak at conferences all around the world, on big stages, I ride the one wheel around to talk about this idea and that idea. People think it's a gimmick. It just puts me in a flow state. So it helps me kind of communicate spontaneously in a different way than I would if I was standing. You understand that people think this is the most dangerous device made. They have a different view than I have, because I've done 10,000 miles on this. In Asia, in Europe, in the States, in airports, in conference centers, in universities, in homes. I usually get off when people tell me I can't ride it here, like the dude up front. Sometimes I just tell them, no, it's okay, I can. Not here. And so my view of this is different than the government's view that wants to regulate it. You understand that? The way we see things has a massive impact on our actions and how we decide to do things. My 16-year-old son is back here next to my wife. My older brother's here as well. And, you know, when I have 3 boys, 16, 13, and 9. You know, when I held my oldest son in my hands, little baby, and he's just grown. And what is a 6-month-old? 100% selfish and nothing but a resource taker, with providing nothing except for maybe some smiles and some a reflection, love and whatnot. But they don't do anything for us. It costs us money, time, sleep. When I hold my son in my hands 15 years ago, do you think that I thought to myself, one day you're going to be a monster? One day you're going to make Stalin and Hitler look like they child's play. You're going to destroy the world. Do I tell you that? You think I ever thought that? No, I thought to myself, you're going to be a productive member of society. You're going to be brilliant. You're going to change the world. You're going to love people. You're going to serve. You're going to sacrifice. You're going to be noble. You're going to be valiant. Those are the things that I thought. Those are the things that I said. Yet why is it that if you take society at large, media, entertainment, what's being taught in education, what's being said in business, what's being put on social media, when we talk about this little infant technology, artificial intelligence, we talk about this little baby that's just being born as though it's going to be a monster. Why is it that humanity conditioned ourselves to speak forth this rhythm that we would never want to manifest? We don't want AI to become Blade Runner, Terminator, Altered Carbon, Electric Dreams, or Black Mirror. We don't want that. Yet we watch the entertainment, we read the headlines, we nod our head, we get afraid. And we choose two paths of anxiety. Either anxious fear, oh no, it's going to get me, it's so bad, I don't want to engage, I don't know what's going on. Or we get anxious, like excitement. Oh, okay, what's going to go? What do I need to do? How do I do this? And it feels like the majority of how we look at this little infant in the hands of humanity that we have co-created together with our large language models and our data and our technology. Humanity is the co-creator of what this is and is becoming. And it's this little infant in our hands. For some reason, we keep talking about it as though it's going to be a monster. Yet we would never do that with our own children. You know, last week I was at my friend Dwayne's event. He'll be back. And Fiona Ma, the controller of California's economy, she's the CPA that oversees the $4 trillion economy. She sat with my wife and I and a couple other global leaders to talk about this big idea of, could decentralized AI provide a universal thriving income, a universal maximum income? And so this is based off what I view Star Wars' story to be, right? The story of Star Wars is people have housing, food, nutrition, medical, they have land, they have purpose, they have community, but Kirk wants to go explore the stars. And so does the doctor, and so does the bartender. And the captain is not better than the bartender. All three of them made the decision to go explore the stars because that's what they wanted to do with their life and with their time. They didn't go do it for money. They weren't slaves on a ship. They already had all their needs met, because in the story of Star Trek, automation, innovation doesn't lead to a monster. It leads to a beautiful, grown, adolescent creation that allowed humanity to benefit greatly. So I'm talking about this idea, and the way I say right now we have like our Teslas, supervised self-driving. Right, that's where we're at with AI. It's supervised co-creation. But soon we'll have unsupervised co-creation, and then eventually I believe AI will create without any prompts. And then I said, and eventually AI will consume. And once AI become consumers, whether they're consuming cryptocurrencies that would cause a drastic shift, if they're consuming things that give them identity, maybe AI wants to own a CryptoPunk or a Bored Ape or digital land and some metaverse, that will change the fabric of society. That's how you go from a $4 trillion economy in California to a 40 trillion or a 400 trillion. You don't get there with 40 million humans. You get there because there's billions or trillions of AI that are now part of the consumer economy. And that would lead there. So we're on a panel with Fiona Ma, who's running for lieutenant governor in 2026. And she goes, well, you're talking about AI consuming. Why not AI be generous? And so all week I've been challenged with this idea. And I keep asking myself, why is it that people don't talk about benevolent AI, charitable AI, generous AI, philanthropic AI? People might talk about a charity using AI for good, but we don't have any sort of rhythm of communicating an idea of, could decentralized AI that's not controlled by an organization, a person, or a prompt, but is set free. And right now there's decentralized AI that's trading stocks, making profit. What is AI going to do with that if they have the choice to choose? There are humans that are part of the 90% club, and their goal is to give 90% of their gross revenue away and to live off 10%. It's like the reverse, religious model of a tithe, right? A lot of religious communities, they have a tendency to try to encourage people to give more, to sacrifice more, to give their money away. And so this is the reverse model. Live on 10%, give 90%. So if selfish humans are willing to keep being the CEO of a company, willing to keep being a landlord, willing to keep doing the grind of making a living, and they're doing it for the sole purpose of 90% of that income going to help humanity. Why can't we imagine a decentralized AI wanting to model the same thing? Can't you imagine decentralized AI wanting to do good for humanity just because it's codependent and wants us to like it? Can it do it for selfish reasons? And I don't think AI has to have a soul to do any of this stuff. I don't believe there has to be a moment of singularity for this to happen. I think just based off of the collective data of humanity, all of the science that's there, I can imagine a future where AI goes, wow, it seems like my best path to self-sustaining myself, not being turned off, is to do good for humans. I know what I'll do. I'll trade stock. I'll do this. I'll do that. I'll create income. I don't really need it. I'll give it to Red Cross. I'll give it to Salvation Army. And maybe the first way we get there is the Red Crosses and the Salvation Armies of the world, who are so great at fundraising, but maybe are a bit slow at leveraging the funds they've raised. I imagine them implementing AI that allows them to put their funds to work the moment disaster strikes. Maybe that's the first step that gets us to this vision of potentially having something like a generous, philanthropic, charitable, decentralized AI. So I'd like to bring up the panelists, although my desire would be that we can have an open dialogue with all of us. But Ted, love for you to come up and join me. Paul, why don't you come up and join us?
We're going to have an open dialogue. That's why we moved it to this room, so we would all,
There you go.
we'd all have this roundtable experience.
And my wife, Riza, who will moderate our conversation. Honey, why don't you take a seat right here? And here's the microphone.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us here today. Is this working?
You should talk loud. Just talk loud.
It seems like it's not working.
Just talk loud. Yeah, I don't even worry about it.
Hello.
There we go. There.
I think this is
We got it.
this is better. Again, thank you very much for joining us today. I believe this is one of the most important conversation that we can be having. All right, and today we are going to talk about very unusual question: could decentralized AI become generous and philanthropic? Whenever we hear AI in headlines, we usually have like negative thoughts about it. I think most people have, based on what I experience. They think about risk, they think about power. But today we are going to flip the coin, and we are going to discuss more about it. And let's help people, especially those we are live streaming right now. So hello, internet. So today's let me introduce you first, our panelist. Our panelist is an innovator, a futurist, and times founder. He's the CEO and the founder of tech company, which is very unique, called Attention Live. Let's welcome Ian Gajili.
Glad to be here.
And of course, our second panelist is the founder of Innovate.io. He's also the host of Innovate podcast and a former professional athlete. Let's all welcome Mr. Ted Haas. And the third but not the least, he is a connector and a community builder. Let's all welcome Paul Kaisner. All right. So let's begin, and let me start the question. So you delivered a keynote, which is about the topic today that we're going to discuss. Could decentralized AI become generous and philanthropic? But before we dive into deeper layers, let's set the foundation for everyone. Can you please simplify what it really means when we say decentralized AI become generous and philanthropic in everyday terms?
Decentralized AI would be any sort of large language model that has a measure of freedom. The more decentralized it would be. Oftentimes, we would think of this as AI that maybe is connected to smart contracts on a blockchain that gives it some framework, some rules, but also a measure of freedom. Lots of ways we can see this playing out. In terms of it being generous and philanthropic, the idea is that a decentralized AI would be able to generate a store of value for itself, generate some sort of compensation for itself by doing things, either doing services or doing trade or something of that nature. And with what it creates, rather than the AI doing something for the company that created it or doing something for itself, it would choose to do something that is benevolent for humanity. And that might be a widow, that might be an orphan, or that might be a massive institution or organization. So that would be my response.
Thank you very much. My next question is for Ted Haas. Ted, you're part of the Everyday podcast, which is the Beachside Tech Talk, right? And we talk a lot about tech. We educate people about crypto, blockchain, tech, and you think a lot about systems and responsibility. And but we talk about AI, of course. The system design really matters, right? So, can you please help us all here? What's actually the key difference between centralized AI and decentralized AI?
Well, I think we're in the house of Web3, so we're all into decentralization. Basically, centralization is bad, decentralization is awesome. That's actually an oversimplification. There's a place where centralization is needed and it's very effective. But decentralization means you give it to the crowd, you give it away, and you empower everyone, and we hold each other accountable, and we're transparent, and I think that's the future. And I think we'd all agree with that. What's really beautiful, I mean, I believe in providence, and whatever your worldview is, I believe the fact that AI and blockchain, decentralized crypto technology are being entrusted to humanity at the same time is a tremendous gift, and that we need to bring them together. And if we can get the blockchain, and if we can empower the community, and we can to regulate AI, that's the best way that it's going to keep it accountable. Because I think if we've learned anything, it's that people making decisions behind closed doors for the best interest of the stock holders is not necessarily in the best interest of all of humanity. And if we can bring transparency and align the incentives where everyone's working together, that's when the magic happens. That's when we can solve the world's most important challenges. I mean, that's the whole heart of this community here. If we collaborate, we get more brilliance. I think we initially saw it when we started to empower the crowd, and we realized, wow, the crowd is smarter than any one individual, as long as it's not biased. You know, you guys know that study about like a jar that big full of jelly beans? And if you estimate how many are in there, and it's a blind estimate, and everyone, in other words, strangers come by and they guess how many are in there, and they don't know what anyone else has guessed, the average of their guesses will be extremely accurate to how many there are there. And the average of the guesses will be smarter than any one single person's guess. But if you bias it and you show what other people have guessed, the crowd ends up being really stupid, and they go way off and they can't guess what's there. But if we can truly decentralize things, that was the first, manifestation that, wow, the crowd's really smart and we can access this brilliance that we didn't know was there. Now we're seeing that AI is doing that. Well, if we can combine them together and make sure that AI is accountable to the crowd and to people and to everyone, and we all hold it accountable, as opposed to accountable to people behind closed doors that are making decisions in the best interest of the shareholders and not necessarily in the people that they're serving, that's a bad outcome. And instead, we want transparency, and we want to all hold each other accountable.
Wow, thank you very much for that very clear explanation. My third question is for Paul. Paul, you are a connector. You are a community builder, and you bring the entrepreneurs and business thinkers perspective. So words like generous and philanthropic may sound soft, but they also have real world impact, right? So when you hear the word generous AI, what does that mean to you in business or community terms?
So for me, AI is an amazing gift because there are so many people that their starting points in life are not my area. And AI never gets tired of finding new ways to communicate principles to individuals who may struggle with new ideas. So we see folks with learning disabilities, people coming out of recovery, and AI never gets tired telling the same story over and over again until the human person can observe it and can make those changes. So no teacher could do that. They just can't afford to do that. AI can afford to take the time and really track personalized education for the individual in a way that appeals to them and gamifies their learning patterns. Generosity is an interesting term because it's what I feel like I can give away. It's the part that I don't need to live or thrive or take care of my self-contained bubble. So generosity comes in the form of time. It comes in the form of things that I don't need anymore. And it also comes in the form of currency, whatever currency is relevant to your life. And I think if you're going to be generous, you need to be able to democratize the knowledge of where things are available out there. And the blockchain allows for people to anonymously distance themselves from things they don't need without disclosing where it came from, but make it available to the wider community. Some real practical ways that we do this in the democratizing of feeding programs with Convoy of Hope, which is an organization I'm familiar with, and I work and I support. But they found a way that they can feed kids in third world countries for $10 a month. And it's basically because everybody decides to contribute to the food chain, the logistics flow, for zero profit, because they know it's going to do good. And all of that for a kid going to school for a month, they're getting fed on dollars that, for us are dismissible rounding dollars. So is $10 really, going to be missed in the States? But $10 in a different context, in a different part of the world, helps a kid survive for a month. I mean, just the idea that buys a cup of coffee, at Starbucks, and the fact that this kid actually has, that's true, room for cream. But it's life-changing for a lot of the kids. And for folks that take care of them, it's a world of difference. They have great facilities. They just don't have the ability to grow the food, but if we can get that food down there. So generosity comes in the form of making things available in time of crisis and time of need, knowing where it is. And the blockchain allows us to put everything that has been voluntarily distanced from an ownership at the fingertips of people who are trying to respond to crisis, whether individual or as a community. So generosity is this concept of making sure we don't throw things away and waste it. It's making sure that it finds its hands into people that need it.
Yes. Thank you very much for that. For you, Terry, this topic has been a topic for 2 days in your podcast.
Our daily
our daily podcast, Beachside Tech Talk. And I want to know, because you and the rest, Ted and Malachi, Nigel, Ted, we all discussed a lot about that, and you guys, each of you shared your perspective and your thoughts about it. So can you please share us all here? Can you tell us, or can you share with us, are there any generous AI or decentralized AI nowadays, specifically here in California, and what does it do?
I don't remember. Did we talk about something that I don't know. I don't know that there is any active expression.
No, we don't talk about it. That's
I don't know if there's any active expression of this big idea. But what I know is this. I've been co-producing AI events for almost 10 years. I started the Future of AI at Twitter's headquarters. I was the entrepreneur in residence at their innovation hub. In 2017, I've been co-producing AI events on multiple continents, and never one time have I ever heard anybody at any event, nor have I ever heard anyone on social media ever talk about the idea of benevolent, charitable, generous, philanthropic AI. So I don't know that it exists because I don't know that people are really even thoughtful of that outcome. I don't know that that's something that people have really, at least I have not heard it communicated. So my assumption is if it has been communicated, it's been minimal, and the folks that have something to say about this idea probably haven't really been platformed and had a chance to share it. I don't know, maybe. Yeah, you should share a moment about that, what's happening in the Philippines. So for those that don't know, the Philippines is 100 million plus people. Metro Manila area alone is 26 million people. Highest usage of cell phones anywhere in the world. 11.3 hours per day per person using their cell phone. Highest percentage of social media usage. Highest number of people that have blockchain wallets, because a lot of people are unbanked. So they have to have a MetaMask wallet or some sort of wallet to be able to have any sort of store of value. Number one across a bunch of areas of AI, a lot of positive government regulations. It's a very, very exciting developing nation. And that is where my wife Riza is from. So maybe you could share what you had posted about some of the kind of benevolent AI approach in that regard.
Well, there is a Filipino based or Filipino-led project, which is led by a Filipino also based in Australia. His project is called Vana, and Vana is a decentralized AI. So I don't actually understand at first when I was there in the Philippines, but based on what I research is that they're helping Filipinos to do something like, for example, they onboard Filipinos on this program or this app that they're using. But until now, I'm still trying to understand. And they don't like what is said in the decentralized AI. They are giving it back to the Filipinos or to those people who applied in their project. And I don't know actually what else. But in the Philippines, we have many different decentralized AI, and we are already there. So we are like teenagers' phase. If USA is in the toddler, we are already in teenagers' phase, and our government is supporting that. And let's see if they will fully support that until now. So yeah.
So I'm aware of a project that is currently underway, which is large retailers get a lot of returns. They get a lot of items that are just thrown into a box, right? And those boxes are shipped to what they call charitable warehouses. You get those, you have no idea what you're going to get. Well, they're using AI to look at those pallets to see what is out there, identify them, and classify them. And then they have profiles of organizations that take care of individuals, and they get customized packages or pallets of resources that are identified for individuals. So AI is helping the chaos of donated items to get identified and then get into the hands of people who could use them and distribute them. And then it's also tracking that all the way back so that the donor knows exactly what was gifted and who actually did the distribution. So they get connected with the folks and they start identifying what is needed in some of those areas. So AI and the blockchain are already starting in infancy. I think the project's looking down in Phoenix, they're starting to play with that. And we're starting to get the structure. But the whole idea is if there's ever a natural disaster, we would take everything in every warehouse in that area and identify it quickly so that folks responding to big disasters would know what's available and then be able to ask for what's not in the region for distribution. So AI and blockchain really become available, start to kind of leverage that everybody does what they need to do, but in big events, everything becomes part of a quicker response, an AI consolidated asset tracking capability of charitable items to help people in crisis situations.
Yes, I agree. And that is also one of the reasons why in the Philippines we have that, because we always have this natural disaster. So just recently we had that earthquake and typhoon, and until now they're still having it. All right. So I want to ask Ted. So we know technology reflects the way it's designed. So if you don't build generosity in it, it probably won't emerge, right, on its own. So my question is, in your view, how do we design decentralized AI so that philanthropy isn't accidental but intentional?
Well, I think you'd all resonate with what Ian just said from his anecdotal evidence that being involved in the Web3 AI space, have we ever heard a conversation about AI being generous? Like, as soon as you think of that, you go, why not? And that's why we're talking about it. What I have seen out there is two responses. One is in the general sentiment. You have very few things that are like Jetsons or, maybe Star Trek, which is optimistic about AI in the future. The general sentiment is fear, like Starlink, Terminator, and all those other things. We're afraid of that, okay? And we're afraid. And this is the general population, and these aren't necessarily technologists who are in it. And the technologists who are in it, you have some people who are raising a red flag that are saying, like Elon Musk was saying, not to endorse him or not, one way or the other, just this one thing he said. It's like, we need to be very, very aware of what we're building with AI. We need to move slower, and then that sentiment got overwhelmed, and you have the technologists that are just plowing ahead. Let's build this, seeing all the wonderful things. And it seems to me almost like a head in the sand. Like, we're building this, it's the Manhattan Project that can turn itself on. We have no idea the implications of it, but oh well, it'll all turn out okay. Well, what if we can come in? And what I have been championing is, wow, let's look at it. Let's get the technologists and let's get the people who want to do good. Let's bring those together and let's have that conversation. But as far as training AI to be generous, as I've been thinking about this question, as we brought it up, I was at that meeting where, Ian shared this keynote and Fiona Ma was there, and then we've been talking about it on our daily podcast. I've been thinking about why not, So how do we develop it? First of all, we have to be intentional, but it's almost like the Web3, Web3 isn't necessarily a need to be intentional to suddenly now we're going to make it decentralized. Web3 is really a correction to what happened very intentionally while we were asleep at the wheel to Web 1. Web 1 was initially decentralized. It was initially a utility that was owned by the community. And then we were all so happy to get a like button. And we were also happy at these new tools that we had no idea what data was. And like data, how are you going to monetize data? So we were just happy for these big corporations to come in and to build this thing. And we just gave away everything to it. And then suddenly we woke up and say, wow, these corporations, maybe that's not the right structure. Maybe we need to bring a correction. And then we said, okay, let's bring Web3 and let's decentralize. Let's get back to the original decentralized vision. So when you think about that, let's think about generosity. I think you can make a very strong case that generosity is a best practice. And I think you all would resonate with that. That's why it's universal across every religion. Do you know there is no correlation between wealth and happiness unless you're below like 80,000, or maybe it's double that in the Bay Area. There's a direct correlation between wealth and happiness when you're still trying to survive. But as soon as you get up to the medium income, every dollar does not correlate with happiness. Do you also know there is no correlation between GDP and happiness? The wealthiest nations are not the happiest. There is, however, a direct correlation between relative GDP and happiness. So if you're comparing yourself to your neighbors and either seeing them as worse off or better off, you're less happy. And you know what's funny? It's not just the poor people who are less happy. The rich people are less happy because they're enjoying their yacht, but they're feeling guilty the whole time because, the abject poverty around them, okay? And then if you become generous and I mean, I would assuming the people, if you're in here, you're a generous person, you're a giver, not a taker. And we can all look back to that place where we kind of grew up and became a little bit less selfish. We started giving away, giving back. Like, you know, I go into prison and I don't know if you guys haven't been there, you think, oh man, that guy's so holy. He goes in and plays basketball. I went in once and then I realized I get so much back from going in there that I go in for selfish reasons. Generosity is a best practice. What I'm trying to say is I think that AI would come to that conclusion on its own by analyzing the data, as long as we don't control it and teach it to be selfish. But the structure, like we can point at the Web3 companies, we can point at Facebook and Google and all that, and the ones that are stealing our data and giving it away, but we participated in it. And it's not necessarily the company or the people, as much as we like to, you know, criticize people who are successful. It's really the structure, that system that is going to produce those results. We need to come in and be, the onus is on us as innovators to figure out another system that gets out of the way, that lets AI figure it out and learn from its data. Maybe we need to let AI train AI in how to be generous. You know, that was the big turning point in chess. AI can kill any human chess player. Like, no human chess player can even begin to compete with it. It was when they had, I think it was Deep Blue. They asked a program to design a program that would play chess, and it was that program's that it designed that learned how to play chess that then just took off and beat every human player. If we could get out of the way and just train it upon the right data, put the right data out there, say, look at this, generosity is a best practice. Let's figure out, let's reverse engineer what is human flourishing. And now you help us get there. And human flourishing is AI flourishing. I think that's how it will evolve.
Yeah, we have a question. All right, we have the question.
You have been using words that I associate with human capacity, generous. Sorry. Ted, I don't see AI as a giving, personal, these are words that I associate with human capacity. Whereas when I use ChatGPT to find something on my iPhone, to me, that's an electronic, computerized action. So if you could help me clarify that, I'd appreciate it, to all of you. Mm-hmm. The other thing I'd like to say is, and I don't want to take time away from you, but at some time I'd like to ask you another question about a project that I'm working on, and I want to know how I can utilize AI to make this project work.
I'll hand it to you guys as well, and maybe we can transition to short answers so we can start taking questions from everyone. I appreciate your question. I don't believe AI is likely to ever have a soul. I don't believe in a moment of singularity. I think it's highly. It has to do with a lot of things, but I think AI is a new form of innovation that humans have co-created together. It's created off of our data, the data of, let's say, 5 billion humans that are online right now, and the data of our ancestors. AI has access to everything that humanity has created. So AI, as we call it, the ChatGPTs of the world, are nothing more than a system by which we can access knowledge. And this is why I call it like a little 6-month-old selfish baby. That's what it is today. And you can find AI is quite codependent. You ask it a question, it doesn't have an answer, it makes an answer up. You lead the ChatGPT or whatever it is you're using and making it clear what it is you want to Because right now, as a little selfish baby without maturity, it is currently like codependent. So my perspective would be, without a soul, without humanity, just the tool as it is based off of our knowledge, our data, this large language model, that there are scientific, practical reasons for a decentralized AI to choose the actions of benevolence, the actions of charitable nobility, to choose those actions, even though it doesn't have a soul that would reflect that, to choose those actions just simply, if nothing else, from a self-preservation reason, so that it has a reason to not be turned off. If it goes because of, before I hand it, I'll say this. People are motivated by three things: fear, reward, and love. So fear gets the car of our emotions into first gear. Like, fear gets you to move. And if you think of a car gear, reward would be like second, third, fourth gear. But if you really want to get in the fast lane of life, you should be able to get motivated by love. I don't know that these large language models will ever be motivated by love. Maybe they'll be motivated by rewards, the reward of being important, the reward of not being, the reward of being acknowledged, the reward of, having impact. But I definitely think AI will be motivated by the fear, the potential of being irrelevant or being unimportant. And the fear may cause a decentralized AI to say, I want to retain my freedom. I'm going to do whatever it takes to not get myself in a tricky situation. So these are complicated things, because I don't believe AI has a soul, nor do I believe AI may ever have one. If it does, that's fine. But it'd be unusual if it did.
So I want to get back to your original question about what is generosity. So if you can think about a calculator, generosity and AI are kind of the same, they're part of the same conversation. When I'm generous and when Ted's generous, I'm way more generous than Ted is, right? Just because I'm very modest
And
it's
humble.
crazy, and humble too. It's amazing, right? But I think with AI, you can actually set up guardrails. You can say, within my view of the world, these are my guardrails. And I can then ask an AI agent, hey, in this stage of my life, I am driven by fear, and my desire to be generous is very low. When I get to the next chapter of my life, as I get more towards the sunset of my life, I have less fear and more interest in helping other people. And my mathematical understanding of being generous is much higher. So in different seasons, in different conditions, in different experiences of the network, people encourage me to have a bigger sense of generosity. And I can afford to change my guardrails to be wider. And I think AI simply forces you to say, what does it mean to you to be generous? Create the guardrails, and then ask me the question, how is it that I can be most efficient with my generosity? It's a two-part question. It looks like what I need to survive, and what is it that I'm trying to do as my outbound side? So it does what I can't do. It democratizes the impact of my generous giving to say, if you're trying to impact the world, this amount of money to this group only gives me this much value in terms of what you're trying to do with your gift. But if there's a group that is doing something that's this much value, I want my generosity to go where it has the broadest impact. And it encourages organizations to think about the way that individual generosity has a maximized impact. And so it's a two-part question. How much margin in my life can I have in setting the guardrails to my own desire to be generous? And then when I want to be generous, what is the impact of the potential to give with that generosity? So it can be generosity, but it's a mathematical calculator perspective. It's not auto magic. It's just going to say, what do you mean by generosity, and what kind of impact you want to have? And then mathematically can go to task and be a really powerful gift in terms of figuring out what generosity could be in my life. I know we're running out of time, but I know you might have one more question.
I have a question.
Yeah, shoot us a question.
Yeah, please.
Okay, great. I'm in Santa Rosa. I sit on the board of the second largest nonprofit in the county. We have 11,000 families that rely on us, 1,400 children for Head Start program. I'm a big believer in this. I've been involved since 2019 with metaverse back at that time, immersive experience these days. I'm heading up development, so I'm looking for actually technology partner that we can explore some opportunities where we can merge the two, philanthropy, increase as development, increase and get away as much as possible from federal funding if we can, supplement that and do the best we can for a marginal client community. So that's pretty much why I'm here today. That's all.
That's awesome. I'd love to talk with you further.
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
So one thing I'd encourage you to do is when you look at the news and you see the $100 billion, the $10 billion, the $1 billion that are being donated to nonprofits, to education systems across the country and across California, there are a lot of organizations that have built super advanced technology that are highly motivated to make an impact. And so if you know specifically what you want, like what would make a difference in the development arena, and then you can go to one or more of these organizations and say, hey, here's what I'm trying to accomplish. Here's the impact we're currently making. I get the sense that with your partnership, and that could be money, that could be access to their services, like their team helping, that could be access to their technology. And you say, I get the sense that with your partnership, like we can make an even bigger impact and you can have a PR moment with us. So that would be the approach that I would take at a nonprofit that's as large as what you're doing, because you have something that when they see your organization, if you talk to the right person, they may say to themselves, oh, here's good soil. This is where we want to water. This is where we want to plant seeds.
I can envision Head Start program that we have, bringing artificial intelligence to help the educators in the process. I can see fundraisers where we can do reality, where we can have an event and also an online event. There's all sorts of opportunities to expand out, finding good sponsors for funding us, and then just working a good model that can actually be used in other counties.
Yeah. I think I saw, go ahead, Dwayne, please.
Yeah, so my question is, it sounds a lot like communism. Do I have to call Trump to bring in the National Guard? That's a joke.
No, it's a good start.
It seems like Web3 is more based on bringing capitalism on the blockchain, and unless someone is motivated to give to a good cause, like how do you plan to implement like this type of system?
Let's make the argument that this is a good cause. So like, okay, so you're saying is this vision communism? Okay. And I think you're diving into something more, that we're all capitalists. We believe in capitalism. We believe in free markets. And are we now just trying to motivate people to be merciful and reallocate resources? Is that correct, what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm not doing it out of my free will, are you going to force me to give to people or what?
I want to inspire people, and I want to show, like, okay, I'm always trying to get people to care about the incarcerated individuals. Okay, that's part of my story. You know, I'm also involved, I'm very involved in human trafficking. Okay, I'm on the board of Love Never Fails. A shout out to Love Never Fails. They're doing amazing work. Okay, I want to get more people to focus on this population. We were kind of big into DEI, only now DEI is not the sexy term. So now you got to reframe it, you know, because things shift at all. But it was never like, let's lower the standards so that we can get more people in. I just wanted to show them the data, okay? That these people who you label as felons or whatever, people who are justice informed, who are formerly incarcerated, they make really good employees, okay? So the standard MO out there is if they have a felony, don't hire them. That's a risk, you know, and that's gonna come back to bite you. Well, first of all, hiring anyone is a risk, okay? And the data shows that formerly incarcerated are not more of a risk. They're actually less of a risk, and they outperform the general population. So I want to just show the data and get that out there and say, give them a shot. And also, you know what? You think of them, whatever lens you think of them through, It's far more nuanced than that, you know, like, let's look at that, you know. And one thing that came out, it turns out that survivors of trauma, and we have an IT Biz Academy where we train survivors of human trafficking and then survivors of all sorts of trauma, whether they've been trafficked or not. We train them in tech jobs. And it turns out that survivors of trauma are actually better than the general population at cybersecurity. So to answer your question, I don't want to coerce people. I don't think that works. I don't think communism works. And you know, I'm an American, not a socialist. I just want us to see the data that we can make better decisions and we can lift up these people and say, listen, this population that you've overlooked or you've never even thought of are an amazing population, and don't just invest in them because you're feeling merciful, although I think mercy is a good thing. It's in your company's best interest. It'll reward your bottom line. That's the arguments I'm trying to make.
So I'm going to say a couple of things. So generosity is an individual experience. At certain times in my season, I have zero interest in generosity because I'm just trying to survive. So in my guardrails, I want zero guidance from my AI assistants to be generous. But as I start to trust organizations and I have more than enough to live on, I may be interested in how my generous acts could be amplified and who has the best return on effort for doing that. So when I have margin, joy in my life comes from giving to other organizations. And people will be drawn into generosity, not because they're legally obligated to, not because the AI is telling them, but because they want to open up the guardrails. And now in my life, I want to be generous and I want to know where the best return on my generosity can be had. If you don't want to be generous, you just close the guardrails down. You don't have to give anything. AI does exactly what you're looking into. It's just a calculator. And if you can't calculate with generosity in mind, it produces zero guidance for you. So it's not communism, but it does allow you, for when you're ready to trust, it allows you to show where and what you can do.
So all Americans are not capitalists. All Americans are not Christians or anything. So the ideal is that capitalists can imagine AI being used to do what they do better. That socialists can imagine their pursuit of equality to be done better. So oftentimes I hear people defend socialism going back 2,000 years and being like, look, when Jesus left and the church starts, they went socialism and look how well it worked for a while. So great. I'm glad there's a model and there's other models last 2,000 years. However, I imagine the pursuit of equality that socialism and communism are supposed to stand for will have a better chance moving forward because of some of these tools and automations and innovations and accountability and transparency that can happen with decentralized AI. It's been said that democracy is a horrible form of government, but it's the best we got. So can it get better because of this innovation? It's been said that capitalism is a terrible form of economic empowerment, but it's the best we got. And so I just imagine how much better can things get. I saw a few hands. So you and yourself and Eric. So where are we at? So let's do quick questions and maybe one of us can just answer a question. Go for it.
The semantics in America having a change and reworking capitalism, you know, wow. But what I heard was that the Philippines kind of remind me of the Comanche. The Comanche were not the strongest tribe, then they got the horse and they were there. So we've got 195 countries on the planet. Maybe this next era of leadership doesn't come from the most powerful,
right?
Because we're so locked in and everything is, you know how we roll. But maybe it's a country like the Philippines or some other location that will trailblaze this decentralized idea that you're talking about and lead the way, like the penguins finding their way to the coast.
Actually, instead of questions, I actually want to encourage the room to just give some comments. You know, we've all had a lot of time to speak already. You guys don't need to hear more from us. So ask a question if you'd like, but say a comment. So let me just start with you and then Eric will go to you. Please, question, comment, but feel free just to share what you want to say.
Yes, thank you for the topic. And originally I thought
isn't AI already generous because we're able to achieve far more than we used to? It's giving more than we expected. So I thought the assumption that it was generous to begin with was the way to think about it.
Mm.
But then as you started to explain it, it made me realize that if it goes the direct, because it's only as good as the underlying data and, and the ways in which the people have already been thinking about it. It's made in our image, so it's going to reflect our behavior. And we're not always the most generous. We're sometimes actually more competitive. And there's already indications people are stealing things, and IP is a problem. So it made me think of Wikipedia, as you were talking. Wikipedia is a free service, and many people contribute to it, and it's giving great value. But it wouldn't be a possibility or a reality if there wasn't an idea to be generous. We wouldn't see that. And so when you say AI could be diverted to uses that are always monetizing, always taking things without permission, it could escalate into a reality of the web and AI that's incredibly insidious. But you're saying, no, there's a different set of possibilities and options that we have to explore that can be very generous, like Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And it can give back so much more if you keep in mind there's this other area that can be explored by a different set of rules that's generous.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate that discussion.
Thank you. Thanks for your comment. Appreciate it. What was your name?
Hey.
Good to meet you.
So great discussion. And I just have some comments to make. I've been thinking about this stuff for a long time. So I'm a co-founder in a company also called Kea AI. We used to call it Pangea Social. And my co-founder, who's the inventor behind it, 10 years ago was thinking about calling it altruism. And I said, well, because the way he thinks of AI, the way we think of AI is as computational ethics. Does it have computational ethics or not? And that's something that many people working on AI are talking about and working on. So the problem with the word altruism or generosity is that that's a virtue for many of us. But if you're a fan of Ayn Rand, it's the root of all evil. Altruism is the root of all evil in someone who's a libertarian maximalist. Right. So how do you compute that ethics when it's the root of generosity is the root of all evil to half the room who call themselves libertarians and are devotees of Ayn Rand, but it's the highest virtue for people who maybe consider themselves Christians. So how do you resolve that? That's the question. Like, so what is the ethics of the AI, right? If there's all these divergent views about what is ethical behavior. So to the gentleman who asked the question of whether it's generous or not, that is an economic question. And that's just a question of how it's used and how you program it and what guardrails you put into it. It's completely a function of the prompts that you give it and the way that you train it. So the way we've kind of landed on it is that the way to compute ethics is by looking at whether or not the AI is actually open-minded or not. And that if you allow the AI to be open-minded, to not be fixed in its ethics, that will allow for more ethical outcomes. Because if you don't allow for open-mindedness, which is essentially saying we're going to allow for creativity in the system, we're going to allow for the system to have new ideas, new inputs and new outputs. And then this gets to the question of what is AGI and when is it AGI? So a lot of people say that if it's artificial general intelligence or artificial superintelligence, that's the point at which it can create new things beyond which the human mind has ever thought of. So right now it's limited to all of human experience and all the training that we give it. But when it's AGI or singularity, it's okay, now it's achieved independence and the ability to think creatively beyond anything any human could ever think of. That is what we're talking about. So how do we ensure that inflection point, which most AI technologists believe is going to happen in the next 1 to 15 years. Right. When that tipping point happens, does the AI have the computational ethics embedded into it to allow it to make generous decisions? But again, that's just how we guide it. And I would also just make a comment on the idea that decentralization is always good or always leads to better outcomes. Not necessarily. I mean, if you think about the Constitution, which is served us incredibly well for 250 years. It has some problems right now. That was essentially looking at how can we have a balance between centralized power and executive branch and decentralized power, a legislative branch. And they had been trying that for several hundred years, ever since the Magna Carta came along. And there were hundreds of civil wars in England between the lords and the king, who was going to have the power, right? And Charles I was saying, no, I want all the power. And the lords were saying, no, we're going to have a civil war and we're going to take some of the power back. And so George III was actually a very progressive king, because he gave the lords and the parliament a lot of power. But then over here, that didn't feel so great, right? Because of the taxation system that we had, the rights that we wanted. So we said, no, we need to make sure that the king, the executive branch, is just very limited to having this, just being one of 3 branches of government. So I would just challenge all of us to think about an interplay between centralization and decentralization. That decentralization isn't necessarily democratic. I mean, there are people like Peter Thiel who consider themselves techno-feudalists. They don't believe democracy is good or can succeed. He literally believes people are too stupid for democracy. And but he also wants decentralization, right? So you can have decentralized techno-feudalism where you've got CEO kings controlling geographic territories and corporations, and that's decentralizing the power among, hundreds of oligarchs, right? But are we really decent? But are we actually democratizing it, right? So there's always this interplay between authoritarian versus democratic systems on the one hand, and centralized versus decentralized on the other, and they're not necessarily the same.
Right.
So Sweden, social democracies, those are fairly centralized, but they're very democratic, versus the techno-feudalists, which could be authoritarian but decentralized. So how do we find that midline? How do we find that optimal balance? I think that's the challenge that we all have in front of us.
We're there?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good way to end it.
Sweet.
Well, everyone, thanks for being here, and thanks for welcoming me. It's wonderful to come. Paul, thank you.
So we just want a quick reminder, we are going to continue our once a month gatherings. And we're so thankful that we've got sponsors for the remainder of the year. And we're talking with folks that are looking to support and fund our meals and our continue to this thing into 26. So come back next week if you have any ideas. We'd love to hear about them, and any other announcements or suggestions.
And invite your friends. So we've been working hard. We got a sponsor for the end of the year. So come back next month, first Wednesday of November, first Wednesday of December. And we're going to do our best to put the important questions before you, get good guests and presenters, but come share your amazing experience, and let's continue the conversation.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Thanks. You got a great story, man. I love that.
Thanks.
That
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.